The world was ending, and the sky knew it. Across the shattered continent, the sun had long since surrendered its warmth, buried behind a veil of ash and smoke that stretched from horizon to horizon. Below that suffocating shroud, the rumbling marched without mercy. Endless colossal titans moved in perfect, terrible formation, their steaming bodies grinding kingdoms into powder, flattening ancient forests, and swallowing oceans beneath the crushing weight of their footsteps. Cities that had stood for centuries vanished in minutes, and every surviving nation could only watch, paralyzed, as the apocalypse rolled forward like a living tide of judgment. At the center of that unstoppable march moved Eren Yeager, silent, resolute, and utterly convinced that only absolute destruction could secure Parity's future. His eyes, hollow yet burning, saw nothing but the road ahead. Then the impossible happened. Far above the marching giants, the heavens split open. A violent emerald storm bled across the sky, spilling green fire through the ashen clouds. Lightning unlike anything the world had ever witnessed cracked downward in a single world-shaking bolt, striking the earth with the sound of a dying god. When the light faded, a vast crater smoldered where a battlefield had once stood. Soldiers from both Marley and Parity's rushed toward the impact, weapons trembling in their hands, certain they were about to face another titan more terrible than any before. Instead, they discovered a colossal green giant slowly rising from the smoke. The Hulk had arrived. He was neither Eldian nor Marleyan. He bore no transformation scars, no vulnerable nape, no thread connecting him to the paths. Yet the raw force pouring from his body dwarfed anything the surrounding pure titans could comprehend. They froze, some staggering backward, instinctively sensing something ancient, foreign, and profoundly unnatural. Confused, Hulk saw civilians crushed beneath advancing wall titans. His instincts overrode his bewilderment. With a thunderous leap, he crashed into the marching line, and for the first time the wall titans stopped. News of the Emerald Giant swept across the battlefield faster than any messenger could carry it. Whispers spread through trembling ranks, and within minutes, soldiers on every side were arguing whether this creature was humanity's salvation or its final catastrophe. To Marley's shattered command, he appeared to be the ultimate biological weapon, a horror engineered by an enemy they could not yet name. To the surviving scouts, he resembled a titan that had somehow retained absolute, terrifying freedom. Armin pushed his way to the front of the trenches, his throat dry, his eyes locked on the towering figure. Something in the giant's expression, buried beneath layers of fury, hinted at awareness. Intelligence. Choice. He tried to shout, tried to communicate, though his voice was drowned in the roar of collapsing earth. Mikasa remained a step behind him, blades drawn, muscles taut. She recognized power when she saw it, and this power obeyed no rules she understood. Levi watched from a broken rooftop, quiet as stone, and noticed what the others had missed. The green giant only struck the wall titans. He shielded the fleeing villagers with his own body. His violence had purpose. High above, Eren stared through the Founder's perception, tracing every thread of Ymir's subjects through the paths. Each soul, each titan, each memory glimmered in that endless network. But where the green giant stood, there was nothing, a blank space in reality, an absence the coordinate could not touch. Frustrated, Eren commanded the surrounding titans to swarm the intruder. They hesitated. Something older than obedience whispered fear into their bones. When they finally attacked, Hulk tore through them like paper, growing stronger with every strike. Ymir, silent within her endless tree, opened her eyes wider. Hulk paused, chest heaving, and made his choice. Instead of chasing survivors, he turned toward the towering skeletal shape at the horizon's edge and launched himself skyward. Eren's voice echoed through the paths, cold and certain. "You are not meant to exist here." The confrontation began. Hulk struck the founding titan with the force of a falling star. The impact rippled outward in every direction, shaking mountains half a continent away. Eren's massive skeletal form buckled, the ribs of his monstrous body groaning like a cathedral about to collapse. Yet the true damage occurred somewhere no eye could see. Beneath the physical world, within the invisible architecture of the paths, threads of destiny began to snap. Each collision fractured the network binding every Titan across history. Armin felt it first. Standing far below, gripping a broken beam for balance, he watched as the sky itself shimmered, as if reality had begun to breathe unevenly. Around the battlefield, Eldian soldiers gasped and staggered, their eyes rolling white. Memories from lives they had never lived poured into their minds. Villages from centuries ago. Faces from generations they had never known. The coordinate flickered like a dying flame. Hulk was not simply fighting Titans. He was unraveling the mechanism that allowed them to exist. Within the paths, Founder Ymir raised her chin. For 2,000 years, she had watched humanity build monuments of hatred, empire upon empire fueled by inherited grief. But this creature carried none of it. His fury held no royal blood, no ancient trauma, no bargain with the king. It was raw instinct, born from the simple, unshakable desire to protect those who could not protect themselves. For the first time in 2 millennia, Ymir questioned whether endless violence had ever truly been freedom. Eren refused to yield. Believing Hulk's interference would doom parodies, he unleashed every Titan under his command in a single desperate surge. From horizon to horizon they converged upon one green warrior. Instead of being crushed, Hulk grew. Every scream around him fed his resolve. Every fallen soldier sharpened his purpose. His rage evolved into something almost mythological, a force set squarely against extinction itself. Below, Levi, Mikasa, and Armin coordinated humanity's final assault around his unstoppable advance, and for the first time in weeks, the scouts fought with hope instead of despair. Yet deep beneath the paths, older cracks began to widen. Something buried long before Ymir stirred within the darkness, feeding on the chaos of Hulk's presence. An ancient hunger opened one enormous eye. Stopping the rumbling might unleash something far worse. The battle was no longer humanity against Titans. It had become something larger, something the world had never truly seen. As the paths continued to unravel, the ancient hunger buried beneath them finally rose. It emerged not as a Titan, but as a colossal living parasite, a serpent of endless flesh and shadow whose scale defied comprehension. Its body coiled through the collapsing dimension like a mountain range given breath. For centuries, this thing had shaped the world in silence, feeding on fear, hatred, and inherited suffering. The Titans had never been the true source of humanity's curse. They had merely been its greatest creation, its favorite meal. Realization struck the survivors at the same time. Eren, Armin, Mikasa, Levi, and Hulk stood on opposing edges of a battlefield that no longer belonged to any of them. Enemies moments ago, they now faced a horror that dwarfed every conflict between them. Slowly, painfully, an uneasy alliance formed in the silence of shared understanding. Their philosophies did not soften. Eren still believed sacrifice was the only path to freedom. Hulk believed true strength existed only to shield the helpless. Their views collided even now, but for once, their fists moved in the same direction. The parasite reached for Hulk first, threading tendrils through the paths, trying to bind him with visions of destruction, drowning him in illusions of every soul his rage had ever harmed. It expected to consume him. Instead, it encountered Bruce Banner. Within Hulk stirred not a mindless storm, but a lifetime of restraint, guilt, and painful discipline. His fury had never been limitless. It had always been shaped by compassion, tempered by loss, guided by the quiet man beneath the monster. The parasite could not corrupt a force already forged by inner war. With a final thunderous roar, Hulk tore himself free from the paths themselves. One monumental leap carried him above the marching wall Titans. His fists came together above his head, and when he descended, the parasite's core shattered beneath the impact. At the same moment, Mikasa reached Eren and made the heartbreaking choice history had always demanded of her. Armin destroyed the remaining founding defenses, opening the way for humanity's final gamble. The parasite disintegrated into dust and silence. Across the world, millions of colossal titans froze in mid-step. One by one, they crumbled into drifting ash. For the first time since the apocalypse began, sunlight touched the earth without resistance. Victory came at a staggering price. Nations were gone. Eren's dream died at Mikasa's side. and Hulk, standing atop the silent ruins, began to fade. Months passed, and the world learned how to breathe again. Without Titan powers, without inherited curses, former enemies faced one another as ordinary people for the first time in recorded history. The nations that survived the rumbling were forced into fragile cooperation, forging peace not through fear, but through the trembling honesty of shared loss. Reconstruction was slow. Grief was heavier than any wall ever built. Yet children played once more in the shadow of ruins, and that alone was enough for many to keep going. Armin recorded everything. He wrote of the mysterious green giant whose arrival had altered the course of the war, though every record of his existence seemed to blur as the ink dried, as if reality itself refused to remember him. Many dismissed his account as legend, wartime imagination given weight by desperation. Levi did not. He remembered a warrior whose true strength lay not in his fists, but in his refusal to abandon strangers he had never met. Mikasa remembered too. On a quiet afternoon, she walked alone into the ruined field where the giant had last stood and placed a single wildflower upon the cracked stone. She did not speak. Silent gratitude was the only offering the guardian would have accepted. Within the fading paths, Founder Ymir smiled. It was a small, weary smile one carried for 2,000 years. Then the dimension dissolved around her, and destiny loosened its grip on humanity forever. Far beyond that universe, in a distant crater on another world, Bruce Banner opened his eyes. Only moments seemed to have passed, yet fragments of unfamiliar memories lingered behind his gaze. Enormous walls, endless footprints. The faces of children who had lived because someone chose to stand. He could never prove those memories were real. In the ruins where the rumbling ended, a child knelt beside a stone and discovered an enormous green handprint pressed into its surface. No Titan could have made it. No human could explain it. And the legend, quiet and unshakable, began to spread.